boy's face was still burning behind his eyes. Not the heat vision that had cooled the moment Billy Batson's skull had cracked open like wet kindling. No, it was the expression, that final flicker of betrayal before the light went out. The look of a child who had genuinely believed, until the very last synapse fired, that Superman wouldn't actually do it. "You made me do this," he had thought, standing over the body while the other regime members stared in mute horror. "You made me prove that I meant what I said." That was the burden of leadership. Lesser men flinched. He did not. Then reality screamed. The floor beneath the Hall of Justice buckled. Not from impact, from absence, as though the universe itself was hemorrhaging. Superman felt it before he understood it. A gravitational wrongness. A hook sinking into his cellular structure and pulling. His eyes swept the room, processing in microseconds. Diana was shouting something. The walls were folding inward along geometries that shouldn't exist, and beneath the foundation, buried in Luthor's private laboratory levels, something was howling with dimensional resonance. Lex. Even dead, the man was scheming. The beacon, whatever it was, didn't give him time to resist. Reality tore like wet paper, and Superman fell through the wound, tumbling through colors that had no names and silence that crushed like ocean depths. He felt his cells scream as yellow sun energy was stripped away, then flooded back, then stripped again as he passed through membranes of existence never meant to be breached. When he hit solid ground, he cratered it. Consciousness returned in layers. First, the smell. Ammonia. Industrial solvent, and something organic beneath it, decomposition masked by chemical astringent. Second, the sounds. Men shouting in clipped professional tones. Radio static, the whine of machinery. Third, the sun. Yellow, strong. His cells drank it like water after drought. Superman rose from the crater, concrete dust cascading from his shoulders. His regime armor, black, battle-worn, the fractured S-shield catching the floodlights like a scar across his chest, was torn at the shoulder seam but already knitting itself back together. Kryptonian weave. Diana's gift before she'd learned to fear his decisions. Where am I? An industrial zone. Waterfront, based on the salt tank beneath the chemicals. He reached for regime communication frequencies. Nothing. Static where there should be encrypted chatter. He broadened the scan, searching for Justice League emergency bands, Watch Tower telemetry, anything familiar. Nothing. Just noise. Luthor's device. Some kind of displacement effect. He's thrown me across the planet. 30 feet away, men in yellow hazmat suits were hosing something into a concrete trench. Superman's vision shifted, peeling back the visual spectrum. Beneath the chemical foam, the object of their attention resolved. A human torso, female, bisected cleanly at the waist. The remnants of a costume clung to the upper half, white and gold, with a stylized sun emblem he didn't recognize. One of the workers was taking photographs, smiling. That's 7 confirmed eliminations this quarter. Stillwater's going to want documentation for the just get her dissolved before sunrise. Weaver's already crawling up my ass about the Homelander footage. He expanded his hearing. 3 miles east, a news broadcast. Vought International stock rallied today following Homelander's successful rescue of Vought International, a name that meant nothing. 7 miles north, a woman screaming, a man laughing, a wet crunch. 11 miles west, a corporate boardroom, someone saying, "The 7's approval ratings are stabilizing, but if Starlight keeps..." The 7. Starlight. Names. Titles. None of them in any database he'd ever accessed. And the technology, the radio frequencies, the satellite configurations, the cellular networks humming in the background, all of it was wrong. Similar to his world, but divergent in ways that itched at the edge of perception. This isn't displacement, he realized slowly. this is somewhere else entirely. Lex's final contingency, not a weapon, not a prison, a door. And it had thrown him through. Well, shit. The voice came from his left. We got a late arrival. The speaker was 7 feet tall, his skin gleaming with metallic sheen. Enhanced, superhuman, the bearing of someone accustomed to being the most dangerous thing in any room. Behind him, 4 operators in tactical black were already adjusting their stances, hands drifting toward sidearms. "Ironside," one of them said. "We've got an unregistered asset. This isn't in the briefing packet." "No kidding." The metallic man rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck with theatrical slowness. "Looks like Stillwater missed one. He pointed at Superman. "You got about 5 seconds to tell me which hole you crawled out of before I put you back in one." Superman studied him. Through the metallic epidermis to the reinforced skeletal structure beneath, the enhanced musculature, the small brain pulsing with aggression and crude confidence. Compound-based enhancement, his analytical mind catalogued. Artificial, no magical signature. Durability ceiling, approximately 40 tons of force before structural failure. He could exert 4 billion. But it wasn't the power differential that interested him. It was the context, the body in the trench, the casual documentation of murder, the corporate terminology wrapped around wet work like a quarterly earnings report. "The woman," Superman said. "The one you're dissolving. Who was she?" Ironside laughed. "Meridian. She was a pain in the ass who didn't know when to keep her mouth shut. Vought decided she was a liability." He grinned, metallic teeth gleaming. "I'm just the guy who makes liabilities go away. Same thing that's about to happen to—" Superman moved. There was no telegraph, no wind-up. One moment he stood motionless at the crater's edge. The next, his fist occupied the space where Ironside's chest had been. The metallic man didn't have time to process his own death. His body simply separated. Torso from spine, ribs exploding outward like shrapnel, organs painting the concrete in a steaming arc. The remains hit the ground in 3 distinct pieces. Silence. The hazmat workers stared. The tactical operators stared. One of them very slowly reached for his radio. Superman caught his wrist, gently, almost kindly. "I'm not from here," he said. It wasn't a question. "This isn't my world. Your technology is wrong. Your heroes are wrong. Your society is wrong." He studied the man's face. The terror there, the helpless animal recognition of a predator beyond comprehension. "But the sickness is exactly the same. Power without accountability, strength without conviction. You let corporations decide who lives and who dies, and you call it civilization." The operator's bladder released. Superman didn't react. "Tell me everything. Vought, these heroes." He smiled, and there was no warmth in it whatsoever. "I'm going to bring order here, and you're going to help me understand what needs to be corrected." He released the man's wrist and turned his gaze east toward the skyline. Toward the gleaming tower he could see even from here, the stylized V glowing against the pre-dawn sky like a beacon of arrogance. "This world is sick," he thought. "Different symptoms, same disease. But I've cured sickness before." Behind him, the body of the woman called Meridian dissolved quietly into chemical foam, unmourned and forgotten, while her executioners scrambled to explain to their supervisors that something new had arrived. Something that didn't negotiate, something that had already decided this world needed saving, whether it wanted salvation or not. The operator's name was Garrett Vance, 26 years old, former Army Ranger, 3 years with Vought Security Solutions, Cleanup Division. He had a daughter in Queens and an ex-wife in Jersey. And he told Superman all of this in the first 90 seconds because he believed, correctly, that comprehensive cooperation was the only thing keeping his organs inside his body. "Vought International," Vance gasped, kneeling in Ironside's cooling viscera. They make soups. Compound V, it's a drug, a serum, gives people powers. They've been doing it since World War II. All the heroes, all of them, they're Vought products, marketing, merchandise. Superman stood motionless, arms folded across the fractured S-shield, processing. The Seven. That's the premier team. They're the top tier. Homelander, Queen Maeve, A-Train, The Deep, Black Noir. Starlight. They do movies, endorsements, rescues, whatever tests well with focus groups. And the woman in the trench? Vance swallowed. Meridian. She was being considered for the Seven 2 years ago, but she found out about Stillwater, the cleanup protocol. Soups who become liabilities. PR problems. She threatened to go public. He gestured weakly at the dissolving remains. Vought doesn't let people go public. Corporate murder dressed as brand management. Superman felt something settle in his chest. Not surprise, but confirmation. A cold, clean clarity. "Who's the leader?" he said. "Tell me about him." "Homelander. He's the strongest, the face of Vought. He can fly, shoot lasers from his eyes. Bulletproof. Nobody knows his upper limits. He's saved thousands of people. Millions, maybe. He's America's hero." And Vance hesitated. His eyes darted to the other survivors. 3 hazmat workers and 2 tactical operators, all kneeling in a row, all very carefully, not making sudden movements. "And," Superman repeated. There are rumors, stories, people who've worked close to him, Vance's voice cracked. "He kills people, not just villains, anyone who pisses him off. He crashed a plane full of passengers because the rescue was going badly and he didn't want bad footage. He's got a body count that would make most serial killers jealous, but Vought covers it up. They always cover it up." Superman was quiet for a long moment. "A man with my powers, my abilities, using them for vanity, for comfort. Where is he now?" "Vought Tower, Midtown Manhattan. He lives there, 99th floor." Superman turned east. The tower was visible even from here. A gleaming spire of glass and steel, the V logo burning crimson against the brightening sky. 12 miles, 3 seconds at cruising speed. But rushing was sloppy. And he had learned, across 5 years of regime enforcement, that understanding the battlefield was more valuable than dominating it. "The others," he said, "the rest of your team, where do they report?" "Sector 7 Lima Operations Center, half a mile north. It's where we—" Vance gestured vaguely at the dissolving trench. "Where we process everything. Bodies, evidence, anything that doesn't fit the narrative." Superman nodded slowly. "Show me." The operations center was exactly what he expected. A squat concrete building with no windows, heavy security doors, and the antiseptic stench of industrial cleaning agents barely masking older, darker smells. Vance led him through corridors lined with refrigeration units, past rooms where men in lab coats catalogued severed limbs with the dispassion of accountants. He killed everyone who raised a weapon. 17 men in 4 minutes. Some reached for guns. Some reached for phones. One reached for what appeared to be an alarm. Superman removed his arm at the shoulder before the fingers touched the button. The screaming was considerable. He let it continue for precisely as long as it took to establish that further resistance was not merely futile, but cosmically absurd. "In my world," he said to Vance, who was pressed against a wall and shaking violently, "I built a system, laws, accountability. The strong protected the weak because I made them, because the alternative was me." He stepped over a body, his boots leaving red prints on the tile. "Here, you've let the strong become products, celebrities, brands, and you're surprised when they act like the monsters you've trained them to be." Vance said nothing. There was nothing to say. Superman found the central server room. The data was extensive. Decades of Vought operations, soup deployments, casualty reports, and cover-up protocols. He absorbed it in seconds, his enhanced cognition processing terabytes of corporate atrocity. Compound V, created by a Nazi scientist named Frederick Vought during World War II. Tested on concentration camp prisoners before being refined for American use. Every superhero in this world was the product of Nazi medical experimentation, repackaged for consumer appeal. They call me the Tyrant. He found Homelander's file, the psychological profiles, the incident reports, redacted, classified, buried under layers of legal protection. A man raised in a laboratory, denied human contact, trained to perform heroism for cameras while possessing no actual understanding of its meaning. A weapon pretending to be a person. Superman closed the file. He had seen enough. 3 blocks south, in a surveillance van that smelled like old coffee and desperation, Billy Butcher watched the Queens waterfront light up with emergency vehicles. What the hell is that? Frenchie was at the monitors, cycling through hacked traffic cameras and police band frequencies. Sector 7 Lima, Vought cleanup site. Very classified. Very... He stopped. Oh, that is not good. The camera feed showed the operations center. Specifically, it showed the wall of the operations center, or what remained of it. A perfect circular hole had been punched through the concrete, as though someone had simply decided the architecture was optional. Bodies were visible through the gap. Lots of bodies. Homelander, MM asked, leaning forward. Negative. Frenchie zoomed in on a figure emerging from the building. Black armor, red cape. A symbol on his chest, an S, fractured down the middle. That is not Homelander. Butcher stared at the screen. The figure moved with absolute confidence, utterly unconcerned by the carnage surrounding him. A Vought security team was rushing toward the building. The figure turned, and twin beams of red light lanced out, bisecting the lead vehicle. The explosion scattered the rest. Heat vision, Huey said quietly. Like Homelander. Better than Homelander. Butcher's voice was flat. Look at him. That's not showing off. That's not enjoying it. That's just efficient. The figure rose into the air, slowly, deliberately, and hovered for a moment, surveying the destruction below. Then he turned east toward Manhattan and accelerated. Sonic boom. The cameras shook. He was gone. So, Frenchie said into the silence. We are completely screwed, yes? Run the footage back. Butcher was already reaching for his phone. Get me everything on that symbol. The suit, the way he moves. I want to know what the hell we're dealing with. Billy. MM's voice was careful. If that guy's going after Vought, going after Homelander, maybe we just let him. Enemy of my enemy. You see what he did to those people? Butcher gestured at the screen. That's not a man with a grudge. That's a man with a philosophy. And in my experience, the ones with philosophies are always worse than the ones who just like hurting people. He lit a cigarette, inhaling deeply. Homelander's a mad dog. You can predict a mad dog. That thing. He pointed at the frozen image, the fractured S barely visible through the smoke. That's something else. Huey stared at the carnage on screen. 19 confirmed dead in under 5 minutes. Professional killers, armed and trained, reduced to anatomical wreckage by something that moved too fast to follow. What do we do? Butcher smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Same thing we always do, Huey. We watch, we learn, and when the monsters start killing each other, we figure out how to make sure they all go down. He blew smoke at the ceiling. Starting with finding out where the hell this one came from and whether he's got any weaknesses at all. Superman landed on the roof of a building 6 blocks from Vought Tower. The city sprawled beneath him, familiar and alien simultaneously. The same human architecture, the same human stench, the same human weakness. But no Wayne Enterprises logos, no LexCorp subsidiaries, no subtle markers of his world's power structures. Instead, Vought. Everywhere he looked, the V logo blazed from billboards and bus stops, from merchandise displays and streaming advertisements. Homelander's face smiled down from 100 surfaces, plastic and perfect and utterly empty. This is what humanity builds when left to its own devices. Not civilization, not progress. Just better packaging for the same old rot. He thought of Billy Batson, the boy's face, the betrayal in his eyes. "You made me do this," he had told himself. And it was true. It was always true. They made him prove that peace required strength, that order required sacrifice, that mercy was a luxury the universe could not afford. This world would learn the same lesson. He stepped off the roof's edge and flew toward Vought Tower, the fractured S-shield catching the morning light like a declaration of war. They came for him over the East River, 3 silhouettes rising against the pale morning sky like missiles launched from Vought's gleaming heart. Superman stopped, hovered, let them approach. He'd been tracking them since they lifted off. Heat signatures distinct against the urban sprawl, trajectories converging on his position with the precision of a coordinated intercept. Someone had seen the destruction at Sector 7 Lima. Someone had decided to respond. Good. Let me see what passes for strength in this world. The formation resolved as they closed the distance. A figure in black tactical armor, masked completely, moving with the coiled efficiency of someone who had killed professionally and often. A woman in white and gold, blonde hair streaming behind her, hands already beginning to glow with concentrated light. And rising from the river itself, water cascading from scaled armor, a man with gills fluttering at his throat in the desperate bravado of someone who'd been ordered into a fight he wanted no part of. They stopped 50 feet away. The woman took point. That's far enough. Her voice carried authority she didn't entirely feel. He could hear her heartbeat, elevated but controlled, trained. "I'm Starlight. You've entered restricted airspace and are wanted for questioning regarding an incident in Queens. Stand down and come with us peacefully." Superman had studied her. Annie January, 24 years old. Compound Vi administered in infancy. Photokinetic abilities, maximum output approximately equivalent to a small explosive charge. Recruited to the 7 8 months ago. Her psychological profile indicated genuine heroic impulses, corrupted by institutional compromise. She believed in something that was more than most. "I've read your file," he said. "All of your files. Vaught's servers were very comprehensive." Starlight's glow intensified. "I don't know what you think you found, but you watched Homelander murder a man named Blind Spot. Crushed his eardrums with his thumbs because the boy's disability offended him. You stood there and watched, and the next morning you smiled for cameras beside him like nothing had happened." The words hit her like physical blows. He watched her flinch, watched the guilt flash across her features before professional composure reasserted itself. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about." Superman's voice was patient, almost kind. "You're not evil, Annie. You're just weak. You've convinced yourself that staying inside the system, playing along, smiling through the horror, that somehow this constitutes resistance, that you're changing things from within." He shook his head slowly. "You're not. You're providing cover, legitimacy. Every time you stand beside monsters in a photo op, you tell the world that the monsters are acceptable." Black Noir moved. No warning. No preamble. Just sudden, explosive motion, blade materializing in his hand with practiced fluidity as he closed the distance in a blur of black tactical armor. The assassin didn't speak. Didn't need to. His body language said everything. "You're coming with us. One way or another." He was fast, genuinely fast. Enhanced reflexes pushing him to speeds that would blur against human perception. The blade was custom forged, molecular edge designed to pierce soup-grade tissue. He'd used it to kill dozens of enhanced targets, maybe hundreds. He knew exactly where to strike, exactly how much force to apply, exactly how to end a threat with maximum efficiency. The blade shattered against Superman's throat like glass on granite. Noir didn't hesitate. Backup weapon already in hand. A secondary blade, shorter, designed for joints and gaps in armor. He struck at the space beneath Superman's jaw, at his eyes, at the vulnerable webbing between fingers. Every blow precise, every blow useless. Superman caught his wrist. "You're good," he acknowledged. "In my world, you might have been worth recruiting, trained properly, given purpose beyond corporate murder." His grip tightened. Bones creaked. "But you chose to be a weapon for people who dissolve women in chemical trenches because they knew too much about marketing strategies." He twisted. The sound was wet and wrong, radius and ulna separating, elbow joint inverting, the entire forearm folding backward at an angle that human architecture was never designed to accommodate. Noir made no sound, no scream, just a slight exhalation as his body registered trauma it couldn't process. Trained to silence, Superman noted, even in agony. Impressive. He released the ruined arm and struck, not fast by his standards, not even particularly hard, but his fist connected with Noir's sternum at approximately 400 miles per hour, and the assassin's chest simply ceased to exist. Ribs vaporized, heart ruptured, spine severed. The impact exited through his back in a spray of pulverized bone and liquefied organs, painting the morning air an arterial crimson. What remained of Black Noir tumbled toward the river, trailing viscera like streamers. The whole exchange had taken 3 seconds. Oh God, oh no. The deep was backing away, water churning beneath him as his telekinetic connection to the river strained to keep him aloft. His face had gone the color of spoiled milk. His gills were fluttering arrhythmically. Hyperventilation setting in as his brain tried to process what he'd just witnessed. He killed Noir. Did you see? He destroyed him. Deep. Starlight's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking, photon output fluctuating wildly. Deep focus. We need to coordinate. If we hit him together. The Deep's laugh was high and cracked. He caught the blade, and he didn't even blink. I didn't sign up for... He was spiraling, terror overwhelming whatever thin courage had carried him into the fight. Forget this. Forget Homelander. Forget all of this. He dove. The Deep plummeted toward the East River, a streak of green and panic fleeing at maximum speed toward the dark water that was his only domain. Superman watched him go, tracked the trajectory, calculated intercept options, made a decision. Let him run. Cowards had their uses. They carried messages, spread fear, and fear, properly cultivated, could accomplish what violence alone could not. Tell your master what's coming. Let him understand that his world is ending. He turned back to Starlight. She hadn't run, hadn't retreated. Her hands were blazing now, photon energy building to discharge levels, drawing power from the morning sun, from the ambient light bouncing off the river, from every available source her abilities could tap. It wouldn't be enough. They both knew it wouldn't be enough, but she was going to try anyway. You don't have to do this. Her voice was hoarse. Whatever you want, whatever you're after, there are other ways. Violence is the only thing that's ever worked. Superman drifted closer, arms folded across the fractured S-shield. I spent years believing otherwise, trying to inspire, to lead by example, to show humanity a better way. His expression didn't change, but something cold moved behind his eyes. My wife died because I was too slow. My city burned because I was too merciful. Millions of people. His voice caught. Just slightly. Just for a moment. I learned. I adapted. And when I finally stopped pretending that evil could be reasoned with, when I started removing it instead of rehabilitating it, the wars ended. The crime stopped. Peace came. That's not peace. Starlight's glow intensified, desperation fueling her power. That's just fear. Fear is peace with better marketing. Superman smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Your world proves it. You have no one willing to impose order, and look what you've built. Celebrity murderers, corporate death squads, a population so hungry for heroes that they'll worship anyone in a cape, no matter how many bodies pile up behind the cameras. He was close now, close enough to touch. Homelander has killed thousands, Superman continued. Your own files document it. The plane crash alone, 47 passengers, including 8 children. He let them die because the rescue was going badly and he didn't want the footage to make him look incompetent. His voice hardened. And you stand beside him. You smile with him. You let him put his arm around you for photo ops while you pretend you're making a difference. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. Superman's hand moved, not fast, deliberately slow, almost gentle, his fingers wrapped around her throat. You just didn't like the alternatives. Starlight fired, everything she had all at once, a column of concentrated photon energy that could melt steel, vaporize concrete, overwhelm enhanced retinas, and cook enhanced flesh. The beam struck Superman's chest like a small sun being born, light so intense it whited out the morning sky. It splashed off him like warm rain. He didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't acknowledge the attack in any way except a slight tilt of his head, as though mildly curious about the sensation. In my world, he said conversationally, I've survived nuclear detonations, direct hits from weapons designed to kill gods. Beings with power you can't imagine have tried to destroy me, and I'm still here. His grip tightened. Not enough to kill, just enough to make breathing difficult. You never had a chance. But you tried anyway, that's admirable. Starlight's vision was going red, blood vessels rupturing in her eyes, her light flickering as oxygen deprivation crashed through her system. I'm going to let you leave. The words didn't make sense. Her brain was too starved to process them. Not because you deserve it, not because you're innocent. You're not, and we both know it. Superman's grip loosened slightly. Just enough for her to gasp, to drag a thin stream of air into her burning lungs. But because you're not like the others. Not completely. There's something in you that still believes in what the symbol is supposed to mean, what heroism is supposed to be. He released her. Starlight fell, couldn't control her descent, couldn't summon the strength to fly. The river rushed up to meet her. When I've finished with Homelander, Superman called down, his voice carrying easily across the wind, when I've burned out the rot at the heart of this world's corruption, someone will need to explain why it was necessary. Someone will need to help the survivors understand. He turned away, orienting toward the gleaming tower on the horizon. Consider this your opportunity to choose a side. Choose wisely. The sonic boom cracked across the sky like God slamming a door, and starlight hit the water. Cold, dark. The East River closed over her head like a fist, brown water flooding her mouth, her lungs, her fading consciousness. She was sinking, couldn't move her arms, couldn't find which way was up. The cold was almost soothing, numbing the fire in her throat, the agony in her chest, the terror that had locked her muscles into uselessness. This is how I die. The thought was distant, almost peaceful, not fighting Homelander, not exposing Vought, just drowning. Another body in the river. Another problem that solved itself. Hands grabbed her collar. She was being dragged upward, fast, urgent, someone pulling her toward the surface with desperate strength. She broke through, choking, gasping, river water burning in her throat as air flooded her lungs in ragged gulps. Got her. She's breathing. Get us moving. Voices. A boat engine roaring to life. Hands hauling her over a gunwale, dropping her onto a deck that smelled like motor oil and stale coffee. "Easy, Annie. Easy. You're okay. You're okay." Huey's face swam into focus above her, pale, terrified, water dripping from his hair where he'd gone in after her. His hands were shaking as they cupped her face, checked her breathing, pushed soaked hair from her eyes. "I've got you," he said. "I've got you. Just breathe." Starlight coughed, river water and blood, her throat feeling like ground glass. Behind Huey, she could see the others. Frenchie at the wheel, face grim, watching the skyline with binoculars, and Butcher, standing at the stern with a cigarette between his lips and an expression that suggested he was rapidly recalculating every assumption he'd ever made about power hierarchies. "He killed Noir," she managed. "Just one punch. One punch, and Noir was gone. We saw." Butcher's voice was flat, controlled, but she could hear the tension beneath it, the cold recognition of a predator far beyond anything they'd prepared for. "We saw all of it." Huey helped her sit up, keeping one arm around her shoulders. "What was that?" He looked like... the suit, the cape. He looked like he was supposed to be a hero. "He thinks he is." Starlight's voice was raw. "He said he's from another world. Said he ended wars, crime, built some kind of system." She shook her head, wincing at the pain in her throat. "He's going after Homelander. He thinks he's saving us." The boat was speeding west, away from the river, away from the floating debris that had once been Black Noir. Behind them, a sonic boom rolled across the Manhattan skyline like distant thunder. "He's not wrong about Vought," Mem said quietly. "About Homelander, about any of it. Everything he said, we know it's true." "Doesn't matter." Butcher exhaled smoke into the morning air. "Being right about the disease doesn't mean you can cure it. I've seen men like this before. True believers. They're worse than the Homelanders of the world. The mad dogs, the narcissists, the ones who just want to watch it burn. Because the true believers never stop. They can't. Every atrocity is justified. Every body is necessary. They'll save you whether you like it or not. And they'll kill anyone who suggests maybe they've gone too far." Huey's arm tightened around Starlight. "So, what do we do?" Butcher stared at the skyline. At Vought Tower, gleaming in the morning sun like a monument to everything wrong with the world. "Same thing we always do," he said. He flicked his cigarette into the water. Above them, somewhere over Manhattan, a god of order was descending on a false god's throne. And nothing in this world could stop him. Homelander felt him coming before he saw him. It was a pressure in the air, a wrongness, like the moment before lightning strikes. He'd been reviewing footage of the Queen's incident on his private monitors, watching some unknown soup tear through Vought's cleanup crew with contemptuous ease, when every instinct he possessed suddenly screamed threat. He turned from the screens. The wall of his 99th floor suite exploded inward. Not the window, the wall. Reinforced concrete, steel framing, blast-resistant architecture designed to withstand military ordnance. It disintegrated like wet tissue paper, showering the room in dust and debris as a figure in black armor drifted through the gap. Homelander didn't flinch, couldn't afford to. Instead, he smiled, that perfect, camera-ready expression that had graced 1,000 magazine covers. "Well," he said, "you must be the new guy." Superman landed on the carpet. His boots left impressions in the expensive weave, not from weight, but from the sheer presence he carried. For a moment, the two men simply studied each other. "He looks like me," Homelander thought. The cape, the symbol, the absolute certainty in his bearing. He looks like what I'm supposed to be. "You're Homelander." Superman's voice was flat, clinical. "I've read your file. All of it. The real one, not the marketing version." "And you're what exactly?" Homelander spread his arms, gesturing at the ruined wall. Some kind of fan. Because I have to say, the entrance was a little dramatic. We usually schedule these things through PR. Flight 37. Superman took a step forward. 47 passengers. 8 children. You could have saved them. You chose not to because the rescue was going badly, and you didn't want unflattering footage. Homelander's smile flickered. Just for a moment. That was a complicated situation. Stillwater Protocol. Another step. 14 soups terminated in the last 18 months for brand liability. You signed off on 11 of them personally. Those were corporate decisions. Madeline Stillwell. Superman's voice dropped lower. Colder. You were intimate with her. Using her. And when she stopped being useful, you burned her eyes out of her skull and told the world it was a terrorist attack. The smile died. Homelander's eyes began to glow, that familiar crimson heat building behind his pupils, the power that had never once failed to intimidate, to destroy, to end whatever problem stood before him. I don't know who you think you are, he said, and his voice had lost its practiced charm, revealing something raw beneath. But you just made the last mistake of your life. He fired. Twin beams of concentrated heat vision, power that could cut through steel, vaporize concrete, reduce human beings to ash in microseconds. The beams struck Superman's chest dead center, exactly where the fractured S-shield marked his heart. Superman didn't move. The heat washed over him like warm sunlight. His armor didn't scorch, his skin didn't redden. He simply stood there, arms folded, watching Homelander pour everything he had into an attack that accomplished precisely nothing. Interesting, Superman said. Your heat vision operates on similar principles to mine. Focused solar radiation, converted to thermal output. He tilted his head slightly. But the intensity is negligible. Perhaps 1% of my maximum yield. Maybe less. Homelander cut off the beams. His expression shifted, confusion bleeding into something he didn't recognize, something he'd never really had to feel before. Fair. What are you? I'm what you pretend to be. Superman moved, and Homelander barely saw it, just a blur of motion before a fist connected with his jaw and the world became pain. He went through the floor. Not just through. 98th floor, 97th, 96th. His body carving a tunnel of shattered concrete and twisted steel, each impact shattering bones that healed almost as fast as they broke, each floor adding velocity as he plummeted toward the earth. He caught himself at the 60th floor, smashing through a conference room where terrified executives scattered like insects, righting himself in midair, trying to process what had just happened. He hit me. He actually hit me, and it hurt. Superman descended through the hole Homelander had made, slowly, deliberately, like a god passing judgment. He landed on the conference table, expensive wood cracking beneath his boots. You're not even a challenge, you're a symptom. Homelander attacked. Everything he had. Maximum speed, maximum strength, every technique he'd ever developed for ending threats quickly and permanently. He drove his fist into Superman's face, felt the impact, saw the head snap back, and for one glorious moment thought, yes, I can hurt him, I can. Superman's head turned back. Slowly. A thin trickle of blood ran from the corner of his mouth. He smiled. Good, he said. You can actually reach my pain threshold. That's more than most manage. Then he grabbed Homelander's arm and twisted. The sound was horrific, wet, crunching, the noise of superhuman bone and cartilage being wrenched past their breaking point. Homelander screamed, actually screamed, a sound he'd never made before, a sound he didn't know he was capable of, as his shoulder dislocated and his elbow hyperextended and something fundamental in his arm simply gave. Superman released him. Homelander staggered back, cradling his ruined arm, watching in sick fascination as the tissue began to repair itself. Compound V healing, the same regeneration that had always made him invincible. You heal quickly, Superman observed. This will take longer. He moved again. What followed was not a fight, it was a lesson. Superman dismantled Homelander with the patience of a surgeon and the detachment of an executioner. He broke bones and let them heal, broke them again. He drove his fist through Homelander's abdomen, fingers scraping against spine, then withdrew and watched the wound knit closed before repeating the process in a different location. Homelander tried to flee. Superman caught him before he'd crossed 10 feet, slamming him through a support pillar with enough force to buckle the steel core. Homelander tried to fight. Every blow he landed, and some did land, driven by desperation and animal terror, earned him only that slight smile, that tilted head of clinical interest before the retaliation came. You've spent your entire life believing you are special, Superman said, holding Homelander by the throat as the man's healing factor struggled to keep pace with accumulated trauma. Unique, untouchable. And in this world, you were right. No one could challenge you. No one could hold you accountable. He slammed Homelander into the floor. The building shook. Do you understand now? Do you understand what it feels like to be helpless? To know that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you fight, the outcome was decided before you even began. Homelander coughed blood. His face was a ruin, healing but slowly now, the regeneration struggling against accumulated trauma. One eye was swollen shut. His jaw hung at an angle that suggested it had been broken at least 3 times in the last 2 minutes. Please, the word came out mangled, barely recognizable. Superman paused. The most powerful man in this world, the face of American heroism, the monster who had never once had to beg for anything, was looking up at him with something he'd never seen in a mirror. Supplication. Please what? Superman asked. I'll do whatever you want. I'll leave, disappear. You can have Vought, have the 7, have everything, just I don't want what you have. Superman's voice was almost gentle, almost pitying. You don't have anything worth taking. You're not a ruler. You're not even a proper villain. You're just a broken child with too much power and no one to tell you no. He released Homelander's throat, let the man crumple to the debris-strewn floor like a discarded toy. Then he walked to the shattered window and looked out at the city. Below, chaos was already spreading. Emergency vehicles converging on the tower, news helicopters circling at what their pilots believed was a safe distance. The first camera flashes from crowds gathering behind police barricades. Let them see, Superman thought. Let them all see. Get up! Homelander didn't move. Couldn't move. His body was still healing, but his mind had broken somewhere around the 3rd time Superman had punched through his chest and let him feel his own heart stuttering around alien fingers. I said get up. Superman's hand closed around the back of Homelander's neck. He lifted the broken god like a misbehaving child, carrying him toward the window, toward the light, toward the cameras that were already zooming in on the unprecedented sight of Vought Tower's crown jewel reduced to rubble. You're going to stand here, Superman said. You're going to let them see what you are now, what you've always been underneath the costume and the smile and the merchandise. He positioned Homelander at the window's edge, visible, unmistakable, blood-soaked and broken in his torn red, white, and blue. And then we're going to wait. Homelander's functional eye rolled toward him. Wait, for what? Superman looked down at the gathering crowds. The news helicopters, the infrastructure of a media apparatus that had spent decades building Homelander into a symbol. For the cameras to get closer, he said, for the whole world to be watching. Just the way you like it. He smiled. It was not a kind expression. And then I'm going to show them what accountability looks like. 3 miles away, on a rooftop with a clear line of sight to Vought Tower, Billy Butcher pressed binoculars to his eyes and watched the nightmare unfold. He's got Homelander at the window. he reported. Just holding him there, like a trophy. Is he dead? Huey asked. He was still supporting Annie, who was conscious but weak, watching the distant tower with hollow eyes. No, he's moving, barely. Butcher adjusted focus, trying to read the tableau. This isn't an execution, not yet. He's waiting for something. Pointed at the sky. News choppers are moving in, every network looks like. CNN, Fox, local affiliates. They're all converging. That's what he's waiting for. Annie's voice was raw, barely above a whisper. Maximum audience. He wants everyone to see. See what? Frenchie asked. Annie closed her eyes, remembered the cold certainty in Superman's voice when he'd held her throat over the river, the absolute conviction that what he was doing was right. A message, she said. He's going to send a message to the whole world. Butcher lowered the binoculars. His expression was grim, calculating, the look of a man watching the game board shift in ways he hadn't anticipated. Well, he said, let's see what he has to say. Above Vought Tower, the helicopters circled like carrion birds, and Superman waited, patient as death, for his audience to assemble. They came from different directions, converging on the tower with the desperate urgency of soldiers rushing toward a battle they already knew was lost. A train arrived first, a streak of blue lightning crackling up the building's exterior, velocity pushing him past the speed of sound as he launched himself through a shattered window 3 floors below Superman's position. Queen Maeve came seconds later, flying in from the west, her sword drawn and her face set in the grim determination of someone who had made peace with death. Superman didn't turn from the window, didn't release his grip on Homelander's neck. He simply waited, listening to their heartbeats accelerate as they took in the scene. Their leader broken and bleeding, held like a puppet by something wearing the skin of a hero. Let him go. Maeve's voice was steady, but he could hear the tremor beneath it. Whatever he did, whatever you think he deserves, this isn't justice. This is murder. Is it? Superman finally turned, presenting Homelander's ruined form to them like evidence. He's killed thousands. Your own files document it. You've watched him do it, stood beside him, smiled for cameras. And now you want to lecture me about murder? A train was vibrating, his body humming with barely contained speed. I don't know who you are, man, but you need to back off, right now, before this gets ugly. Superman studied him. Reggie Franklin. Enhanced speed via compound V, cardiac damage from prolonged abuse, psychological profile indicating profound insecurity masked by bravado. He'd killed Huey Campbell's girlfriend by running through her at supersonic velocity, then covered it up to protect his sponsorship deals. Another symptom. You have approximately 0.3 seconds of reaction time at your maximum velocity, Superman said calmly. I can move faster than light when necessary. If you attack me, you will be dead before your brain registers the decision to move. He tilted his head. Look at what I did to Homelander. Look at what I did to Black Noir. And then ask yourself if you really want to test me. A train's vibration stuttered. His eyes darted to Homelander, to the blood, the torn costume, the way America's greatest hero hung limp and broken like a slaughtered animal. He took a step back. I didn't sign up for this. No one ever does. Superman's voice softened slightly. You signed up for fame. Money. The illusion of heroism without any of its costs. And when the bill came due, you let other people pay it. He released Homelander, letting the broken god slump against the window frame. I'm not here to kill everyone. I'm here to end a system. The question is whether you want to be part of the problem or part of the solution. Maeve hadn't lowered her sword. Her eyes were fixed on Superman with the intensity of someone calculating odds and finding them wanting. And if we fight, she asked, if we decide you're the threat, then you die. Simple. Factual. No malice, no pleasure, just the cold mathematics of power. Quickly, if you're lucky, but you won't stop me. Nothing here can stop me. I've fought gods, real ones, beings that could unmake reality with a thought. You're brave, I can see that. Braver than most, but bravery isn't enough. It never has been. Silence stretched between them. A train broke first. He stepped back, then back again, his speed carrying him toward the shattered window in stuttering bursts. "I'm out," he said. "I'm done. This is above my pay grade." He looked at Maeve, something like apology in his expression. "I'm sorry. I can't." He was gone, a blur of blue lightning disappearing into the Manhattan skyline, leaving Maeve alone with a monster and a god. She lowered her sword. "You're right," she said quietly. "About all of it. Homelander, Vought, everything we've done and everything we've ignored." She sheathed the blade, her shoulders sagging with the weight of accumulated guilt. "I've wanted him like this for years, dreamed about it, but I was too scared to do anything, too comfortable." "Fear is understandable," Superman said. "Comfort is forgivable. What matters is what you do now." Maeve looked at Homelander, at the ruin of the man who had terrorized her, controlled her, forced her to be complicit in horrors she could never wash from her memory. "What are you going to do to him?" Superman glanced toward the window. The helicopters were closer now, close enough that cameras could capture details, close enough that microphones might catch words. The crowds below had swelled, thousands of faces turned upward, waiting. "What I should have done the moment I arrived," he said. "What someone should have done years ago." He reached down and grabbed Homelander by the throat, lifting him upright, and Homelander, broken, beaten, humiliated beyond anything he'd ever experienced, began to laugh. It started as a wheeze, a wet, bubbling sound from lungs that were still healing from having been punctured, but it built, growing stronger, more manic, until Homelander was cackling with the unhinged abandon of someone who had finally snapped. "Oh, you think this changes anything?" His voice was ragged, torn, but there was something wild in his remaining functional eye, something desperate and dangerous. "You think killing me fixes the world? I'm a product. Vought made me. They'll make more. There's always more." His healing factor was accelerating now, adrenaline and terror pushing his regeneration past normal limits. Bones were snapping back into place. Tissue was knitting together. The swelling around his eye was receding. "You're not a savior," Homelander spat. "You're just another monster, same as me, same as all of us. The only difference is, you've got better branding." Superman watched the healing with clinical interest. "You're right about one thing," he said. "Killing you doesn't fix the system. It doesn't undo what Vought built or bring back the people you murdered." Homelander's smile was bloody, triumphant. "Then what's the point? What's the point of any of this?" Superman turned toward the window. The helicopters were in position now, a ring of cameras capturing everything, broadcasting to every screen in the nation, possibly the world. He could hear the news anchors scrambling for words, could see the red lights blinking on every camera. "The point," he said, "is that symbols matter. You've spent your entire existence being a symbol of power without consequence, strength without accountability. You taught the world that might makes right, that the powerful can do whatever they want as long as they smile for the cameras afterward." He dragged Homelander toward the shattered window, positioning them both in full view of every lens. "I'm going to teach them something different." The world watched, in living rooms and bars, in offices and airports, on phones and tablets and screens of every size. Humanity witnessed the impossible. Homelander, America's champion, the invincible hero, the face of everything powerful and good, dangling like a broken doll in the grip of something greater. The cameras captured everything, the torn costume, the blood, the way Homelander's limbs hung at angles that suggested profound damage, even as they slowly straightened with healing that couldn't keep pace with the horror. And the figure holding him, black armor, red cape, a symbol on his chest that seemed almost like a mockery of heroism. He was speaking. The microphones on the helicopters strained to capture his words. "My name is Kal-El. I am not from this world." His voice carried across the wind, clear and resonant, meant to be heard. "I come from a place where I made a choice to stop allowing evil to perpetuate itself in the name of mercy, to stop pretending that monsters could be rehabilitated while their victims multiplied. I chose order. I chose peace, and I achieved it at a cost I will carry forever." He lifted Homelander higher, presenting him to the cameras like evidence at a trial. "This man is not a hero. He is a murderer, a rapist, a creature who has killed thousands, not in the service of justice, but for convenience, for pleasure, for the protection of his own image." Superman's eyes blazed, not with heat, just with terrible conviction. "Your institutions knew, your corporations knew, your government knew, and they covered for him because he was profitable, because he was useful." In the crowds below, people were screaming, some in terror, some in denial, some, more than might be expected, in something that sounded almost like relief. "That ends now." Superman's grip tightened on Homelander's throat. "This is not murder. This is accountability. This is what happens when someone finally says enough. When someone refuses to look away, to compromise, to pretend that evil can be managed instead of destroyed." Homelander was struggling now, healing enough to fight, to claw at Superman's wrist, to fire desperate bursts of heat vision that splashed uselessly against Kryptonian skin. His eyes were wide, wild, the terror of an apex predator finally meeting something higher on the food chain. "No," he gasped. "You can't. I'm Homelander. You're nothing." Superman's free hand rose. His fingers pressed against Homelander's skull, thumb on one temple, fingers spread across the other side. The grip was almost gentle, almost careful. "You never were." He squeezed. The sound was indescribable, a noise that would haunt the dreams of everyone who heard it for the rest of their lives. Homelander's skull didn't crack so much as compress, bone and brain and everything that had made him America's greatest hero collapsing inward like a crushed grape. Blood sprayed across Superman's chest, painting the fractured S-shield crimson. The body spasmed once, twice, then went still. Superman released it. Homelander, the invincible, the untouchable, the face of heroism for a generation, fell. His corpse tumbled from the 99th floor, trailing blood and brain matter, spinning lazily in the morning air until it struck the pavement below with a sound like wet meat hitting concrete. The cameras caught it all. The world was silent. Superman hovered at the window's edge, blood drying on his armor, and addressed humanity. "I did not come here seeking power. I did not come here seeking worship. I came here because I was thrown across the barrier between realities. An accident, a cosmic mistake, a doorway that should never have opened." His voice was calm, measured, the voice of someone explaining simple truths to those too frightened to hear them. "But now that I am here, I see what you have allowed your world to become. Corporations that manufacture killers and market them as saviors. Institutions that cover up atrocities because they are profitable. A species so desperate for heroes that you will worship anyone with power, regardless of how many bodies they leave behind." He descended slightly, ensuring every camera could see his face clearly. "This ends. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now." He raised one hand, pointing toward the Vought logo that still blazed from the tower's facade. "Vought International is dissolved. Every executive, every scientist, every bureaucrat who participated in the creation and cover-up of weaponized humans will surrender themselves within 7 days. Those who comply will face judgment. Those who flee will be found. Those who resist—" His eyes glowed, just for a moment, just enough to remind them what he could do. "Will be dealt with as Homelander was dealt with." The logo exploded. Heat vision carved through steel and glass, sending the massive V tumbling toward the streets below in a cascade of molten debris. "I'm not asking for your obedience. I'm not requesting your cooperation. I'm informing you of how things will be. Those who work toward justice, true justice, not the performance you have accepted, will find me an ally. Those who continue to prey upon the innocent, to corrupt, to exploit, to murder." He smiled. It was the coldest expression any of them had ever seen. "Will find me inevitable." He rose higher, cape spreading behind him like wings. "You have been watching monsters play heroes for too long. You have forgotten what real power looks like, what real accountability looks like. Let this morning remind you." He turned away from the cameras, from the crowds, from the burning tower. "1 week. Use it wisely." The sonic boom that followed shattered every remaining window in a 3-block radius. And then he was gone. On the rooftop 3 miles away, no one spoke for a very long time. Butcher had lowered his binoculars. His cigarette had burned down to his fingers without him noticing. He didn't react to the pain. "He did it," Huey whispered. He just killed Homelander." Annie's voice was hollow, distant. "On live television, in front of the whole world." More than that. MM was staring at the smoke rising from Vought Tower, at the chaos spreading through the streets below. "He just declared himself in charge. 7 days. Surrender or die." Frenchie made a small sound, something between a laugh and a sob. "So we have traded one god for another, yes? Except this one is not pretending. This one actually believes." Butcher said nothing. His mind was racing, calculating, trying to find an angle, a weakness, anything that could be exploited. But for the first time in years, perhaps for the first time ever, he was coming up empty. "Nothing can stop him," he thought. "Nothing in this world. He just killed the most powerful being on the planet like it was nothing, and he's not even tired. He's not even breathing hard." "What do we do?" Huey asked. The question was almost plaintive. The voice of a man who had spent years fighting against impossible odds and had just watched the odds become infinitely worse. "Billy, what do we do?" Butcher opened his mouth to answer, and a voice came from behind them. "You could start by listening to someone who's dealt with him before." They spun, all of them, weapons drawn, powers flaring, adrenaline spiking. The rooftop had been empty. The rooftop had been secure. Frenchie had checked it himself. A figure stood in the shadows near the stairwell access, tall, broad-shouldered. A cape that seemed to drink the light rather than reflect it. And across his chest, stark against the darkness, a symbol that matched the silhouette of a bat. "I'm Batman," the figure said, "and I'm here to help you save your world." He stepped forward, and the morning light revealed a face hidden behind a cowl. Hard eyes, grim mouth, the bearing of someone who had fought wars in shadows and expected to fight many more. "That man who just executed your Homelander. I've been fighting him for 5 years. I know his psychology. I know his methods. I know his weaknesses." The Batman's voice was gravel and ice. "And I know that if we don't stop him here, in this world, he will do to your Earth exactly what he did to mine." Behind him, more figures emerged from shadows that shouldn't have been deep enough to hide anyone. Butcher counted them, 1, 2, 3, more, and felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. "We are the insurgency," Batman said, "and we've come a very long way to finish what we started." The morning sun climbed higher over Manhattan, casting long shadows across a world that would never be the same. Somewhere beyond the clouds, a god of order was already planning his next move, and in the darkness of a rooftop, the resistance had finally found its reinforcements. The war for Earth had just begun.